The first time Sarah Jenkins saw her neighbor's eyes well up with tears, she froze on the stairwell between their apartments. She'd simply asked why he always rushed inside whenever she appeared. His answer, "Because looking at you hurts," hung in the air between them, raw and unexpected. Before she could respond, he'd disappeared behind his door, leaving her alone with questions that would change both their lives forever. If you're enjoying this story, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more heartfelt stories that explore the depths of human connection and healing. David Morgan hadn't meant to say it out loud. For 6 months since moving into the apartment complex with his 8-year-old daughter Lily, he'd perfected the art of avoidance. He'd memorized Sarah's schedule, learned the sound of her footsteps on the stairs, even started taking different routes to the parking lot. All to avoid those fleeting moments when their paths would cross, and the pain would hit him all over again. It wasn't Sarah's fault. How could she know she was the spitting image of his wife, Claire, who had died 2 years ago? The same chestnut hair that caught the sunlight, identical laugh lines around the eyes, even the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when lost in thought, all of it was like seeing a ghost. A ghost that reminded him daily of everything he'd lost. That evening after his confession, David sat at his kitchen table, head in his hands. Lily was in bed, and the apartment felt too quiet, his thoughts too loud. He hadn't told Sarah the reason. Hadn't explained why seeing her was like reopening a wound that refused to heal. Now she probably thought he was crazy or rude or both. "Dad?" Lily's small voice came from the hallway. She stood there in her mismatched pajamas, clutching the stuffed rabbit that had been her mother's last gift. "I heard you crying." David quickly wiped his eyes. "I'm sorry, sweetie. Did I wake you?" Lily shook her head, her blonde curls, so like Claire's, bouncing around her face. "Is it Mom again?" The simple question hit him like a physical blow. He'd tried so hard to be strong for her, to create a sense of normalcy. But children saw everything. "Come here," he said, and she climbed onto his lap, a ritual they'd established in the darkest days after Claire died. "Sometimes I still get sad, but I'm okay." "We're okay. I saw you talking to the nice lady next door today," Lily said, surprising him. "She always smiles at me when I get off the school bus." "Why don't you like her?" David sighed. "It's not that I don't like her, Lily. It's complicated. Mom used to say that when she didn't want to explain something," Lily said with the devastating honesty of childhood. "But I'm 8 now. I can understand complicated things." Perhaps she could. Perhaps it was time to stop running. Sarah Jenkins had moved to the apartment complex for a fresh start. Divorce at 34 hadn't been in her life plan, nor had walking away from a decade-long career in corporate marketing to pursue her dream of opening a small bookstore. Her ex-husband had called it a midlife crisis. Sarah called it finally listening to herself. The single dad next door had intrigued her from the beginning, not romantically, but with a sense of kindred spirit. She recognized the look of someone rebuilding their life. His daughter was adorable, all gap-toothed smiles and curious eyes, always waving enthusiastically whenever they crossed paths. But the father, David, according to the mailbox, had been a mystery, always hurrying away, avoiding eye contact, disappearing into his apartment whenever she appeared. Until today, when she'd finally gathered the courage to confront him. His answer had left her speechless and confused. What had she done to hurt him? They barely knew each other. The knock on her door the next morning surprised her. It was early Saturday, and Sarah was still in her pajamas, coffee mug in hand. Through the peephole, she saw David standing there, looking as if he'd rather be anywhere else. When she opened the door, he spoke quickly, as if afraid he'd lose his nerve. "I owe you an explanation. And an apology." Sarah nodded, stepping aside to let him in. "Would you like some coffee?" "That would be nice, thank you." His eyes darted around her apartment, taking in the overflowing bookshelves, the half-unpacked boxes labeled, "store inventory," the colorful throw pillows she'd picked up on her travels. "Your place is warm." "It's a work in progress," she said, pouring him a cup. "Like most things in my life right now." They sat at her small dining table, the morning light streaming through the windows, illuminating the dust motes between them. "My daughter is at a sleepover," David began, staring into his coffee. "First one since, well, in a long time. I didn't think I'd ever feel comfortable letting her out of my sight again." Sarah remained silent, sensing he needed to tell this story his own way. "My wife, Claire, died 2 years and 3 months ago. Cancer. It was quick, 6 months from diagnosis to..." He swallowed hard. "Lily was just 6. Sometimes I think she's handling it better than I am." "I'm so sorry," Sarah said, meaning it. She'd noticed the absence of a mother but hadn't wanted to pry. David nodded, then looked up at her with pained eyes. "The thing is, you look just like her. Not similar. Identical. The first time I saw you moving in, I thought I was hallucinating. Same height, same build, same hair, even the way you laugh." He ran a hand through his hair. "It's like the universe playing some cosmic joke." Understanding dawned on Sarah, a cold wave of realization. "That's why you've been avoiding me. It wasn't fair to you. I know that. But every time I see you, it's like losing her all over again." His voice broke slightly. "Like being reminded of everything Lily will never have. Everything I couldn't save." Sarah sat back, processing this revelation. What could she possibly say? "I don't know what to do with this information," she admitted finally. "There's nothing to do," David said quickly. "I just wanted you to know it's not you. It was never you. And I'll work harder not to make it your problem." "But we're neighbors," Sarah said. "We can't keep avoiding each other forever." "I know. I'm working on it. Grief counseling, support groups, I'm trying." He stood up, placing his barely touched coffee on the table. "Thank you for listening. I'll let you get back to your Saturday." After he left, Sarah stood at her window, watching as he walked across the parking lot, shoulders hunched as if carrying a visible weight. An idea began forming in her mind, not a solution, perhaps, but a beginning. The next week passed in a blur for David. Work at the architectural firm was demanding, and Lily had a science project due. He'd kept his promise to himself to acknowledge Sarah when they passed rather than pretending not to see her, but the interactions remained brief and painful. On Friday evening, as he helped Lily with dinner, a knock came at the door. He opened it to find Sarah holding a small package wrapped in blue paper. "This is for Lily," she said. "If that's okay." Before he could respond, Lily appeared beside him. "Is that for me?" she asked, eyes wide with excitement. Sarah smiled, that smile that twisted David's heart. "It is. I heard you talking about your science project when you were waiting for the bus. Something about stars?" Lily nodded enthusiastically. "We're studying the solar system. I'm doing my project on Saturn because it has the coolest rings." "Well, I thought this might help," Sarah said, handing her the package. Lily tore into it immediately, revealing a book titled The Secret Lives of Planets, with gorgeous photographs of the solar system. "Wow," she breathed, already flipping through the pages. "Dad, look at these pictures." "That's very thoughtful," David said, genuinely touched despite the discomfort of having Sarah so close. "Thank you. It's nothing. I'm opening a bookstore next month, and we just got our first shipments in. When I saw this, I thought of Lily." She hesitated. "Actually, if you're not busy tomorrow, I could use some help moving some bookshelves. The delivery people just leave everything at the door, and some of them are too heavy for me to manage alone." David was about to decline automatically when Lily piped up, "We can help." "Right, Dad? We're not doing anything tomorrow except laundry, and that's boring." Caught between his daughter's expectant face and Sarah's hopeful one, David found himself nodding. Sure. We can help. The smile that lit up Sarah's face was worth the pain it caused him. Almost. The bookstore was a small space in a renovated historic building downtown, with exposed brick walls and large windows that flooded the room with natural light. Turning Page Books read the sign Sarah had propped against the wall, waiting to be hung. "This is amazing," David said, genuinely impressed as he looked around. Stacks of books were everywhere, waiting to be shelved, sorted into categories with colorful sticky notes. "It's a mess," Sarah laughed, "but it's my mess. After years of helping corporations sell products nobody needs, I wanted to do something that mattered to me." "Books matter," Lily declared seriously, already exploring the children's section Sarah had started setting up in a cozy corner with a small reading nook. "They saved me after my divorce," Sarah admitted. "When everything else was falling apart, stories were the one place I could still find meaning." David looked at her with new understanding. She had her own pain, her own story. The realization shifted something inside him, making her more than just a painful reminder of Claire. They spent the morning assembling bookshelves, Lily proudly acting as tool manager. Sarah ordered pizza for lunch, and they ate sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by half-assembled furniture and book boxes. "Can I ask you something?" Sarah said carefully, after Lily had gone to explore the tiny courtyard behind the store. "What was she like?" "Your wife?" The question caught David off guard. People usually avoided mentioning Claire, afraid to upset him. "She was." He began, then paused, searching for words. "She was sunshine. Brilliant and warm and impossible not to be drawn to. She taught third grade, and her students adored her. She could find the good in anyone." "She sounds wonderful," Sarah said softly. "She was. But she wasn't perfect. She was stubborn as hell, couldn't cook to save her life, and she was always late." A small smile touched his lips. "I used to tell her important events started 30 minutes earlier than they actually did, just so we'd arrive on time." Sarah laughed. "That's exactly what my mother does with my father. 40 years married, and he still hasn't caught on." For the first time, David found himself laughing genuinely in Sarah's presence. It felt strange and rusty, but also like something healing. "The hardest part," he admitted, "is that Lily is starting to forget her. She tries so hard to remember, but she was so young. Sometimes she makes up memories because she thinks that's what I want to hear." "Maybe I could help with that," Sarah said hesitantly. "Not by replacing her memories, but by giving Lily a safe space to create new ones. This store will have regular story times, author events. She'd be welcome anytime." The offer touched David deeply. It wasn't what he expected, not pity or awkward sympathy, but a practical kindness directed at his daughter's needs rather than his grief. "I think she'd like that," he said finally. "We both would." Over the following weeks, a tentative friendship formed. David and Lily helped prepare the bookstore for its grand opening, spending weekends painting walls and organizing shelves. Sarah hired Lily as her junior bookseller, paying her in books and ice cream to sort the children's section by color, a task the little girl took very seriously. For David, being around Sarah gradually became less painful. There were still moments when a certain expression or gesture would hit him like a physical blow, but they were fewer and farther between. He began to see her as Sarah, not as a ghost of Claire. The store's opening night was a success, the small space packed with curious locals. David watched from a corner as Sarah moved confidently through the crowd, answering questions, recommending books, her face alight with purpose. Lily stayed glued to her side, proudly showing customers her children's section. Later, after the last customer had left and Lily had fallen asleep on the window seat, David helped Sarah close up. "Thank you," she said, sliding a book across the counter to him. "For everything." It was a photo book about architecture around the world, something he'd mentioned admiring weeks ago. The gesture touched him. It was thoughtful in a way that showed she'd been listening, that she saw him as David, not just as a grieving widower. "I should be thanking you," he said. "For being so patient. For being kind to Lily. She makes it easy," Sarah smiled. "You've done an amazing job with her, David. Claire would be proud." The words hit differently than he expected, not with pain, but with a warm certainty. She would be, he agreed, and for the first time, he truly believed it. That night, after carrying Lily home and tucking her into bed, David sat on his balcony, looking at the stars. For the first time in years, the future didn't seem like an endless repetition of painful days to be endured. There was possibility again, a sense that new chapters could be written without erasing the old ones. 6 months later, David stood in his kitchen, making pancakes shaped like Saturn, at Lily's request, while his daughter set the table. The routine was familiar, comfortable, but different now, lighter somehow, less burdened by what they'd lost. "Don't forget to make extra for Sarah," Lily reminded him. "She likes the burned ones." "I know," David smiled. Their Saturday morning breakfasts had become a tradition, with Sarah joining them before opening the bookstore for the day. The knock came right on time. Lily ran to answer it, calling out, "We made Saturn pancakes." Sarah's laughter floated through the apartment. "My favorite solar system breakfast." David turned from the stove to greet her, and for a moment, just a moment, he saw Claire. Not as a painful reminder of absence, but as a gentle memory, a blessing on what his life had become. The pain was still there, but it had transformed into something he could carry without being crushed by it. Sarah had helped him understand that healing didn't mean forgetting or replacing, but finding ways to honor what was lost while still embracing what remained. "Everything okay?" Sarah asked, noticing his expression. David nodded, really meaning it. "Everything is good." Later, as they walked together to the park, Lily running ahead to feed the ducks, Sarah slipped her hand into his, tentatively, a question rather than an assumption. David hesitated only briefly before squeezing back, an answer. "You know," she said quietly, "I used to think it was cruel, how much I remind you of her. But maybe it wasn't cruelty at all." "What do you mean?" Sarah looked at him thoughtfully. "Maybe it was a gift. A reminder that the heart can recognize love in different forms, that connection doesn't happen just once." David considered this. "I think Claire would have liked you," he said finally. "I wish I could have known her," Sarah replied, and the sincerity in her voice made his heart expand. Ahead of them, Lily called excitedly, pointing at a family of ducks navigating the pond. Her laughter carried across the water, bright and free. David watched his daughter, then looked at the woman beside him, not a replacement for what he'd lost, but a new chapter, unexpected and beautiful in its own right. The journey from "looking at you hurts" to "looking at you heals" had been long and difficult. There would still be hard days, moments when grief would reassert itself. But there would also be this, pancake breakfasts, bookstore afternoons, park walks, and the profound gift of allowing joy back into their lives. And that, David knew, was the most important story of all.